Welcome back to Albus Explains. I'm Albus, and today we will continue with where we stopped the last time in the year 1853. After the year 1853, when the British thought that they had solved the problem by giving out the last charter of 1853, after that, just 4 years after that they had thought that they were safe. 4 years after that came the biggest revolt India had ever seen in the year 1857. It was called, to downplay its political importance, they called it the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, while what it really was a war of independence. There were many uprisings before that too, but none more impactful than the revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857 is a beautiful story in itself, and it is a story full of many facets of corruption and greed and power and righteousness, and it is a good story in itself. But like I said, I will stick in this series, I will stick to the legislative and administrative side, so I won't be able to go deep into that. Maybe I will do it one day, but till then, we will continue our series with the next year after that, in the year of 1858, the next year after 1857. In that year, a legislation called Government of India Act 1858 was passed. In this act of 1857, the Governor General of India the post of the Governor General of India was removed, and it was replaced by Viceroy of India. Now, the word Viceroy comes from a French word Roy. Just like we have President, then Vice President, this is Roy, and then Viceroy. Here, Viceroy means representation of the crown wherever they are in all the colonies, representation of the crown. This was not the first Viceroy of India. There were viceroys. There were Portuguese viceroys in India too. First of them was Alfonso, I think. But this was the first viceroy which ruled over pretty much the entirety of India. After they had successfully captured it using subsidiary alliance and many other things that they cunningly used to take over India. So the first viceroy and the last governor general of India was Canning, who became the first viceroy of India. This viceroy of India was answerable to a new cabinet ministry called Secretary of State of India, and this Secretary of State of India was part of the cabinet who was answerable to the Parliament of Britain, which means that now the entire administration of India was answerable to the Viceroy. The Viceroy was answerable to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State, being a member of the Parliament, was answerable to the Parliament. And because of this chain of responsibility, because of this responsibility, they understood this as a responsible government is a good government, and that is why they also nicknamed it the Act for Good Government in India. Not that the governments before this were not good, but this was a responsible first time Indians got a responsible government given by the British. Now, the Secretary of State also got a Secretary of State in council. He got a council around which his people work, and this council was made a body corporate. Now, a body corporate is a is an entity which can sue and can be sued in a court of law. For instance, when Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal, no one in the country could question him that what are you doing? You are wasting public money. But no one could do that. That was now not the case. Now people could take the British government to court, even though the courts were themselves part of the British state. But now that path could be taken at least. So making it a body corporate was one of the rarer things that the British did to India. Now most of this was mere administrative streamlining. Not a whole lot of changes actually happened. All this was on paper and for the media. But on the ground, the reality was still the same. The officers who were in India at that time were still appointed by the East India Company. Like their appointment came via the process of East India Company. So even though the head administration may have changed, the ground reality stayed pretty much the same. Now this Canning, the first Viceroy of India, he was made fun of by the British media and other officers of the of the British too, he was called Clemency Canning, because clemency means mercy, merciful. So he was the least cruel, and hence he was teased for that. That you are a you are a bad influence, you are a bad image of the British Empire in India, even though he was the first viceroy. And what he was thinking was, once I told you in the first lecture that in the first video that there are three pillars of a government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. And on these three pillars, the government stands. And these three pillars need to be separate. There should be a proper space between them. That is where our Article 50 comes from, and that was sourced in the Settlement Act of 1781. In that year, we had separated the judiciary from the executive, because that separation of power is necessary and is good, that point, and that is why we took it in Constitution of India of today too. What the East India Company had done after 1773 was, they had taken the legislative powers of Madras Presidency and Bombay Presidency and given it to the to the Governor of Bengal, and they had made him Governor General of Bengal. In the year 1833, they made him Governor General of India, and in 1858, they made him Viceroy of India. After making him Viceroy, the one of the first things that Canning did was, he started giving those powers back. So the centralization that had occurred and all the power had gone to a singular person, the Viceroy, and the Governor Generalship of Bengal, that was being split again and given back to the people. Not people, the British people, but it was given back. The centralization, the ultra centralization that had happened was now beginning to reverse. This will go on till 1935. That would be the point where the entire decentralization would be complete. Like I said, at that time, in the Act of 1858, it was mere administrative streamlining. The actual changes that came after that. Well, there was an executive decision made by Canning to include more people into the Legislative Council. At that, it was just an executive decision. It got legislative sanction after 3 years, and in the year 1861 was passed the Councils Act of 1861. And in the Councils Act of 1861, the size of the legislature was increased. The other thing that happened in 1861 was, they introduced the portfolio system, which means there would be now ministers who would do particular jobs. For example, there would be a defense minister who would just take care of defense. There would be a foreign affairs minister who would just take care of foreign affairs. Like this splitting of jobs that was happening, the first time that happened in India was in this portfolio system of 1861. Obviously, I'm talking about the British government, not the actual history of India, which is far more complex. Okay. The other thing that happened in the year 1861 was, the structure of ordinances had begun, which meant that the executive powers, in absence of the parliament, could issue ordinances, which means could issue acts which will become law for the next 6 months. And in those 6 months, a law passed by the executive must get a legislative sanction. What this basically means is, if we take it in today's context, if the prime minister of a country says that this must happen, it does not actually happen. That is just an executive order that will stay for 6 months. But whatever he says has to be passed by the parliament first. So he can say whatever he wants, but that will not become reality until it is passed by the parliament. So until it is passed by the parliament, it will not become law. So this logic of giving ordinance powers to the viceroy, to the head of state, had begun in the year 1861. And this was a good idea, because if there is something needed to be, because if something needs to happen soon, we can't wait for the parliament to pass the bill in its own time. Rather, the executive powers take a decision and it becomes reality, and then it gets legislative sanction later. Okay, legislative is parliament, so it gets legislative sanction later. So this ordinance making power is now included in the Constitution of India in Article 123. So the ordinance powers of the head of state has its source in the Councils Act of 1861. After this, in the year 1885, a British officer named A.O. Hume started the Indian National Congress, and many revolutionary Indians joined the Indian National Congress. And because of the pressure mounting on the British now, a political pressure mounting on the British now from Indian side, they had they had to pass the Indian Councils Act of 1892. In this Council Act, the legislature was also made stronger now, which means that the councillors could now ask questions on the budget, where the public money was going, and they could now pass bills. Obviously, at the end of the process of the bill, the assent of the viceroy was still necessary, but now at least they could start the bills, and if the viceroy would not sign it, it would still become a record. So that had begun, and that was due to the pressure of the Indian National Congress. Also, to include Indians into the legislature, that had also begun. And to include Indians into the legislature, one of the first uh, one of the first thing that happened was they gave way to indirect elections, which means that zamindars and trade unions and universities, they could now suggest names to the viceroy, under whose consultation the viceroy would nominate the people from India. So the first three members to be included in the legislature of India in the British time were Sir Dinkar Rao, Maharaja of Banaras, and Raja of Patiala, and these were the first legislative members who represented India in Indian Parliament of the British. So that was one of the first achievements that Indians had. In the 1907, Muslim League was formed, and the British saw an opportunity there. And 2 years after that, in 1909, they passed the Councils Act of 1909, also called as the Morley-Minto reforms. And in these reforms, they used this fact that the Muslim League was forming as a sort of differentiating themselves from the rest of Indians, and they used this against India, and they paved the way for separate electorates, which means that only a Muslim man would be able to vote for a Muslim man, only a Sikh person could be able to vote for a Sikh person. Only, like, these minorities who were earlier extremely inclusive, and they themselves considered themselves as Indian first and these secondary identities later. This Councils Act of 1909 properly wedged between the many sections of the society. And to have a show that they are so intensely compassionate for India, they increased the legislative size from 16 to 60, so that more and more people from India could join the legislative council. And yet the grounds on which they would join the council would be the religious sections that were made in the Indian society. Now, the legislative size of not only the center, the union was increased, the provincial council size was also increased, and the nominations for both of them also were given to more and more Indians. It was nicknamed Morley-Minto reforms because Morley was the Secretary of State at that time, and Minto was the Viceroy of that time in the year 1909. So it was nicknamed Mirlo-Monte reforms, and that is one of the reasons why he is considered the father of communal electorates in India, because he was the one who used this idea of breaking India into the religious breaking India on the basis of religious identity. So okay, so now this is where I shall stop, and the next time we meet, India will get its freedom. The year 1947 is not too far now, and when that happens, the history of Constitution of India, it will go on to 1950, but at that point the history of the Constitution of India will get over. So stick around to see that, and I guess this is the end of the video. Like, share and subscribe, and please do comment how you feel about this. And if you have any ideas for me to make new videos on different topics, do leave them in the comments. I will have a look at that too. And I guess I will say goodbye now. Thank you.